Welcome, welcome. Jamie Hernandez here, founder of Breakthrough Yoga Coaching Method, helping you bridge a gap between your spiritual practice and your business. I apologize. I wanted to be in the sun and there's some weird lighting going on. So if you are here for the replay, #replay, because I promise I'm going to come back and answer all of your questions. And if you're here live, #live, and answer the questions and answer them in longer sentences, because that's how Facebook somehow gets the comments showing. It takes a while for the comments to show in real time. So our training today is titled, Am I Worthy? And in the context of spiritual entrepreneurship, am I worthy? Am I worthy of the life that I'm living now, the life that I want, and the business that I can wake up and love? So that is what we're going to be talking about today. Now, here's the thing. I think that most of us on an intellectual level understand, of course, I'm deserving. I'm a good person, and pretty honest. And of course, I'm deserving on an intellectual level. But here's how it shows up in your life and in your business on a very unconscious level. And I talk about this a lot. It's when we are playing very close to a life that looks very close to what we want, but it's not quite it. It's not quite it. Let me know in the comments if that's how you feel. It's not quite it. So I'll give you an example. I had a client, Jen, and she is an amazing expert level figurative artist. So she's not just like, this is not her hobby. This is something that she studied for years. She has commissioned huge figurative artists are when you paint from reality. So she can do these like massive real life looking, types of artwork. And when she came to me before we started working together, she was working as a copywriter. So something in the artistic field as a graphic designer, and something nothing to do with her business, but she was also working at her parents' business as like doing all the hats. And it felt very close to her level of expertise, looking at designs, looking at branding, at copywriting, but it really wasn't the thing. And, in the model that I teach you guys is to take and recognize your expertise, right? Based on your personal experience, based on your professional experience, based on your client experience, and charge a premium, yeah? And, when you're at a certain level of artistry, as you know, artists can get paid a lot of money for what they do. So, she was working in that kind of like zone of excellence, but she wasn't necessarily working in her zone of genius. So let me know in the comments if right now you're kind of doing what you're doing. Maybe you're doing something very similar to your training, something similar to your personal experience, something similar to the clients that you sort of kind of like working with, but it's not quite the thing. And the way you know that is that when you're in your zone of excellence, there's something about it that drains you, right? And not to mix up that when you do something, like when you're in your zone of genius, which is the thing that you love, the thing that you're in flow. And it's not that that's not going to take energy, but literally the energy being transmuted and utilized almost feels like a drain. It almost feels like when you're using it, your energy is being drained in the moment or before you even start doing what you're doing. So you might be living a life and creating abundance in your life, creating, financial gain, and monetizing something that is not necessarily what you love to do. And so this, that's where the am I worthy part can come in. And the thing is, first of all, we have to understand, who we, like, we never even knew this concept of worth when we were born. So it was given to us, right? It was given to us by the people who raised us. It was given to us by our collective consciousness, right? So in the artist, creative realm, and also in the kind of spiritual realm, the collective, some of the collective is like, well, you're a yogi. You like, it's not about making money, right? You should basically, work for free and give your life, to the spiritual practice, which can be true, because that is my devotion. I devote pretty much every single day and moment of my life to my spiritual practice. And I also, it is the way that I monetize, right? It is the way that I receive income, right? Just like a doctor, just like a dancer, just like somebody who builds house. They have an expertise, right? And they offer it to the world in exchange for money. Yeah, so it's it could be a collective paradigm that was given to you, because when you're younger, and my daughter, she was 2, and I think somebody was asking her, like, she was 2 years old, do you want this sticker or do you want this dollar? And she said both. Because in her toddler mind, there was no sense of I can only receive one or the other, right? There was a willingness to receive what is being given. Yeah. So what we start to realize when we work together, because this is what we do, if you were to work with me, we'd start to realize, before we get into any strategy, okay, so where did this come from, right? And what we start to realize with my client was the people who raised her really put a lot of value on loyalty, put a lot of value in, if you take care of us, then you're really valuable, right? And then so, and of course, that we didn't just intellectualize that. We have a whole process which I call the 3-level clearing, where we start to really see these deep, because when we have these unconscious things that basically run our life, so when there is this unconscious part of you that feels unworthy, again, it's almost so subtle that your intellect thinks, oh yeah, I understand that I deserve money, and I deserve to be happy, and I deserve to travel, and all this stuff, but it will physically, mentally, and energetically act in a way just to keep us safe, right? So if the unconscious message was, if you're loyal and if you take care of everyone, then you are valuable, you are valued, right? And so the unconscious, basically the part of us that needs to survive, will take that coding in, the collective paradigm in, and say, ooh, okay, if I'm going to survive in this tribe, if I'm going to be taken care of, then my safety is to take care of other people, right? And so we kind of fall into these roles unknowingly, so that we can feel safe, and we basically will not be exiled from the tribe. Okay, let me know if that makes sense. And again, that's such a deep rooted instinct, right? That we code in, ooh, okay, this is how my body needs to act. This is how my mind needs to think. And this is how, I need to speak. Yeah. For me to be accepted, right? So that I don't get rejected or shamed. Yeah. Or feel guilty. Shame, blame, guilt, are the symptoms of when you're acting from that unconscious part. And that's what am I worthy of that question is, an unconscious protector that has been created. And here's the nuance. We, on so many levels, don't realize that, again, on an intellectual we realize, but on so many levels, because your nervous system has encoded what it is to survive, that will be, and I talk about this a lot, that will be your default. So then, of course, that transposes onto everything else in your life, in the way you make decisions, in the way you talk, in the way you think. Now, what's important, once we start to understand, right? I want to be there, but why do I keep on doing here? Why do I keep on, I want to go there, but I'm going here to get to there. Okay, let me know if that sounds like something. That's another symptom. Like I'm gonna do this before I actually do get what I want, right? Before I actually commission my paintings, for a high, for a 4-figure investment, I'm gonna actually do the copywriting, and I'm gonna do the design, and I'm gonna work with my parents, and I'll do all of that. So here's the symptom: you do all of these things, and then if you have time, you're going to squeeze what you love somewhere at the bottom, because you're only worthy until you do all of those other things. Okay, let me know if that makes sense. And again, I know we get this on an intellectual level, but the reason why we call things unconscious is because it's unconscious to us, right? And that's why working in a high touch, high level premium program is helpful, because then we have mirrors, right? Working with coaches gives us this opportunity to have mirrors. Working with teachers, with guides, right? It's like when I do Tai Chi, my teacher is constantly like, ooh, showing me like, oh, not this, right? Because it feels like I'm doing this, but I'm actually doing this, yeah? Or my whichever I call it, my belly dancing teacher, she's like wrists and then fingers, right? And she shows us, yeah? Because we can't necessarily always see what the physical body, what the mental body, and what the energy body, what the program is, just what it naturally does. Yes? Does that make sense? It's kind of like and it's the same thing. Like when you're working and you're doing some sort of movement, to kind of refine it into the currency and into the direction you want to go, sometimes you need a mirror. Okay? So here's the nuance. We want to discern and know what that part, the unworthiness, and unworthiness is, it's one of the, what I call the false identities. There is, I am not worth it. I don't belong. So it's like, I'm not a business person. I'm not techie. I don't market. I don't do sales, right? I am not perfect. Ooh, I think I better make sure that my website is super professional before I actually sell anything. I am not capable. I better get my 100th certification before I actually go teach the thing I want to go teach. Remember, let me do this to get to that. Okay? We know, this is the funny thing, we know what we want. We know what we want. And so the false CEO, that's what I call it, is kind of running the show. I'm not significant. Who's gonna actually listen to my expertise and what I have to say? It's ridiculous, yeah. And so I'm not enough. I just don't have enough time. I have the kids. I have the house. I don't and we put our wants and needs last. Okay, so all of us have some false CEO running the business and our life. And so here's the important thing. How do we now know when the voice of want, hey, Crystal, right? How do we now know when we can hear the voice of want, right? And so we have to figure it out. And this is how I talk about this all the time. We have to figure out that survival need. First of all, we have to figure out how to meet it, but also how to bridge ourselves from that survival to what I call the soul. And here's how you know the soul speaks. The soul speaks in this wow, that'd be so cool or so amazing if I can do that. And when you're let's say you're not under pressure and there's not this, oh my God, I'm placing my everything on my business, and you're just talking to a friend about what you want, right? You're in the flow. So very often on calls, when I start when we start talking about what we want, it's just like, okay, yeah, they start talking about their clients, they start talking about their ideas, they starting their creative, like there's these creative downloads, and they simply start to, it's almost like this channel that moves through them. And that's the voice of when that's what you want, right? And very interesting, the voice of unworthiness or not enough or whatever it is will quickly jump in. It's like, oh yeah, but, and it will sound like there's a problem. Oh yeah, but I don't have enough time. Oh yeah, no, I don't think people are actually going to pay for that. That's the unworthiness. I don't know if I'm really like, I don't know if I have enough experience, or this is really valuable for people. So we want to start to discern what the voice of unworthiness sounds like, and when we're in flow state. So here's another thing we did with my client. As she started to recognize, okay, where did that root, like, why am I choosing, I know I want this, but why do I keep on choosing like clients that I don't really appreciate working with, or they don't appreciate working with me? Or why do I keep on giving all my time to, my parents' business instead of my own business? And why am I not giving time to things I love, like my family, like, and painting? So here's the funny and interesting thing. You have to figure out what your body, what your mind, and what your energy need to shift you into the flow. And something very easy, a very easy solution, is start to do what you love. Prioritize what you love. And I know that sounds very like, well, that's pretty simple, but guess what? The unconscious of not enough time or not enough is never going to have enough time. The worthiness, like, so let's say you like my client, she's an artist. Oh no, that's not worth it. I don't think I should spend my money on my paintbrushes, or that's time in the studio, So that's the voice that is subtly running the show, right? And it sounds so like convincing, because yes, of course we don't have time because we have to take care of our kids, or of course we that's not worth it because I have to buy groceries. And I'm not saying, okay, to make irrational decisions, but when we start prioritizing what we love and what gets us in the flow. So I have a client, and and another thing I start helping you guys is I start to help you distill a program so that you can really understand your expertise and how to distill that program so that you can move your clients through a particular journey that they are looking for. They're in A and you're bringing them out into B. So one of my clients, and so this is what actually I also did with my client, where it's like, okay, so when are you painting, right? And she would say, oh, kind of like late at night, when everyone is asleep, when I've taken care of everyone and everything, and she's exhausted. Yeah. And so I said, well, what if you did that first? And everybody has their different kind of essence space, where maybe you're a morning person, maybe you're a midday person, maybe you're a night person, whatever it is, okay? But wherever you feel, whatever you're doing, what you're doing, and it feels like it's giving you energy, okay? Because you can kind of place your zone of genius in a time frame that kind of sabotages you, where it's like, let's say you're a writer, but you're doing it like after a day of like doing your taxes and doing the groceries and talking to your husband, and then at the end you're like, writer's block, right? So we want to start to leverage what I call the energy leverage. We want to start to put that in the forefront. Because point number 3, engagement equals clarity. So by simply playing in your zone of genius, and not necessarily playing in the zone of excellence that's meeting the survival needs, that's solving a problem, because that's what the problem survival mode does and looks like. You're playing in this space because creativity needs space, where you're playing in the potential of reality. So if you're an artist and you're painting, it's this, you have this vision and you start putting on the canvas, and it's like you're starting to create the potential reality. Does that make sense? You start to create the potential reality. And why is this so scary to I'm not worthy? Why is this so scary to that? Because that is unknown. This place of highest potential, where you want to go, what do you absolutely love, is something we don't know, right? And when we don't know something, one of the very first needs that need to be met is our survival need. Yeah? So here's point number 4. Your part that is keeping you safe, that works in survival, that works in problem solving, will always be there. Okay, newsflash, it will always be there. And here's where we make the mistake. We think, okay, when I finally kind of fix my worthiness kind of issue, because I know I understand it on an intellectual level and I've been doing the deep work, and when that's finally like resolved, when the problem of me is resolved, then remember this to that, then I'll go for what I want. But guess what? In a problem solving reality, guess what happens? There's always more problems. But in a creation reality, there's space, which is needed. I talk about this a lot. And there's potential. So it's this practice of moving towards what you want while taking care of your survival needs, and actually bringing them along the ride. So this voice of unworthiness and all of those other false CEOs will always speak. And where they're going to speak the loudest is when you kind of move outside, and what Gay Hendricks calls outside of your outer limits. So it's kind of like, and this is the other thing we do too. We compare and we think, oh my God, that person who's doing a TED Talk, oh, wow, they're so confident and they're so successful. Wow, they really have like guts to do that. But you don't think that their false CEO was speaking to them really loud when they finally said yes, like, okay, yes, I got accepted. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to send in my applications to 100 different, places and cities and see what happens, right? That voice is still going to be there. That the imprint in the body is still going to be there. So here's the thing. We practice, and if you were to work with me, we practice bringing that part along for the ride. And we give it what it needs. And what it needs is to be seen. What it needs is to be heard. What it needs is to be felt, right? And that's what we do in the coaching container. And again, I know that sounds very simple and straightforward. But again, it's just like my Tai Chi teacher who was like, Jamie, who? Right? Okay. And then, my unconscious mind will probably do this a little bit like this, maybe for a couple of times just by accident, because it's like my brain and my body. And then as I continue to repeat and move in the direction where I want to go, right? Eventually, what's going to happen is that part that is unconsciously running the show will feel heard, feel seen, feel felt, because we're giving it a seat at the table and giving it what it needs. And basically, the reason why it rooted as a core wound for you, it's because it wasn't necessarily given what it needs. So with my client, she also had needs, right? Her family valued, loyalty, valued your ability to do so much for everybody. But that part of her that says, well, I also need to play outside, and I also need to paint because that's what I love, and I also wasn't necessarily seen. And again, it's not that we're blaming, right, the people who take care of us, but we're just starting to see how does the dynamics, right, when we're interacting with our collective, when we're interacting with our family, how do these roles start to emerge so that our survival needs are met, right, and our soul needs are met. Yeah. So that the point that I was making was, no matter how successful you are or think somebody else is, that false CEO will 100,000% always be there. But as we work with it, and as we start to see the veils that kind of slowly, how they kind of subtly make decisions for us without us even realizing, yeah, we start to be able to bring them into the light and bring them closer to us so that we can finally receive them for who they are and for what they need, right? And when your survival needs are met, then there's a feeling of what it didn't have, of feeling safe, right? Oh, now I'm safe to be me. And, right, the one that wants to be in the driver's seat is that one that wants what it wants, right? And my teacher always says, want what you want. Why? Because you love it. Period. Because what happens, and if you've ever seen a child doing what they love or seen somebody doing what they love, what do you see? What do you feel? What do you experience, right? You experience part of their light. You experience part of their soul. You experience a transmission of expansion, right? Because as human beings, we are physically manifesting the creator of life in physical form. Because if you observe our universe, and this is my point of view, there is constant creation, right? And constant destruction, constant becoming and constant unbecoming. And so this physical form is a physical manifestation of that. And so when we're in that form, that's when we feel most expansive. That's when we feel most at home. That's when we feel most of who we are as a creative being. And, you know, it's not just philosophy, you know, right? Just do what you kind of like and do what you love. And there is a whole different dimension of reality and experience and frequency. And when we do that, we start to raise the frequency around us. So when you are immersed in the thing that you love, the thing that gives you flow, the thing that is so unique only to you, right? You allow those around you to raise in that frequency. Yeah? Does that make sense? And so then what starts to happen is there's this collaboration. And that's point number, I don't know what point we're on, but like I'd say, I think no, point number 5. Point number 5 is now your survival and your soul are in a spacious collaboration. And that's how you move forward with, am I worthy? Am I really worthy? You move forward with a spacious collaboration where there is space for the unworthy needs to be met, and there's an honoring of that deep truth inside of you. Yeah? And that's, you know, I guess, you know, if you were to work with me, that is probably the shift, right? And so it's very interesting. As my client started to move towards and gain really clarity, because basically she started to work, and maybe went on a tangent there, she started work in her zone of genius. Guess what started to happen, right? When she started to prioritize painting, right, at the very beginning of her day, guess what happened? Somebody called her up. Another person in her field who really understands the value of like high-end art, right? Fine artists at their kind of mastery level. She's like, oh, I want you to, I want you to do a painting and for 4K, right? She's never in her life received like that clear cut, I want that, and this is the manifestation, right? Because there was no more, let me do this to get to that, right? It was a clear like, I'm going to spend my time in my zone of genius. And guess what starts to happen? You start to magnetize what it is you want because you start to move towards what you want. Okay, so that sounds a little bit airy-fairy, but that's kind of how it happens. But let me give you a little bit more concrete, okay? So when I first started, doing what I'm doing, where I started coaching spiritual entrepreneurs, helping them bridge a gap between their spiritual practice and their business. How do we do this? How do I make money? How do I sell myself? How do I market? Oh my God, right? I was approaching one of my clients, and she, it's so funny. As soon as I start to gain clarity in the highest potential, she came to me and she was like, I really like the way you do business, because I was always positioning myself, from the spiritual aspect, from that spiritual work, from that deep level core wound stuff, from the body stuff, from the energy stuff, from the mind meditation stuff, right? I always position myself and my services that way. And I didn't even put my program out yet. And she said, I really like the way you do business. I want to work with you. So I'm like, okay. And I had my program in mind. Okay. So I'm like, okay, great. So I told her about the program. And she said to me, okay, I'll think about it. The famous, I'll think about it. Now here is when you start to make the shift of letting the false CEO run the business and your soul. So in that moment, of course, my false CEO, who I told you is always going to be there, was like, oh yeah, of course. Yeah, this is ridiculous. Oh my gosh. Like, yeah, of course she wouldn't pay this much money to work with me, blah, 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 right? That was there. But my soul is like, okay, well, we know where we're going. So we're going to also still move with you towards there. The unworthy part, or whatever it was, for me was like a not significant part. We're still going to take you along the ride. So basically what I did was I gave her the next obvious action, which is what I do with pretty much everybody. It's like I give you the next obvious action, as if I'm coaching you already, because that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing now, because that's what I want to do, right? I'm moving towards where I want to go, right? I play in my zone of genius, whatever it is, like, like I was just telling you, I do the Tai Chi and the dancing and all this stuff, because that is where my soul lights up, right? And so and then I start to move towards that potential of like, okay, I can coach you for free for the rest of my life. That's perfectly okay. And at the same time, I also can bring you through where you are now, kind of struggling with the survival, to where you want to go, moving towards your soul. And all I did was basically gave her the next obvious action, and I gave her, if she was my client, how would I coach her, right? That's all I did. And literally, like, as soon as I sent that, she's like, okay, yeah, I thought about it, let's do it. Okay, do you see the subtlety in starting to invest in your vision, in your highest potential? Yeah. You start to manifest what it is you want. Now, that highest potential, and I teach all our clients, is when you start working in your zone of genius, it's the what you want is not coming from something out there or something that you're seeing. It's coming from a direct channel. Like, I know this is my truth, and this is what I want. And it's like, you didn't even tell anybody what you want, So in my client's mind, it's like, the possibility of selling her paintings for like four to five figures was like, oh my God. But this is the funny thing. Here's how the soul also speaks. It will speak only to you. And it will have other people mirror back either what you don't want or what you do want. But it will only speak to you. And so the practice is learning how to trust that. And that's why I talked about the step before. Engagement equals clarity. So let me recap. Basically, we want to start to see how the unworthy starts to talk, speak, and think, so that we can discern when the soul starts to talk, speak, and think. And the soul speaks in that, the truth that only you know. And you're almost like, oh my God, I'm scared to say this out loud, right? But it sometimes comes out when you're not in survival mode and you're just speaking to a friend, or you're just like writing in your journal like what you would love. And it's this highest potential that you possibly have never experienced in that particular way. So remember, it's like a slight difference between your excellence zone and your zone of genius. Yeah? And so it speaks in just that, and you can only hear it. That is probably the biggest challenge, right, of being a spiritual entrepreneur, is that we have the practice to hear the inner voice and the calling. And we're actually we're so compelled by it that we're going to move towards it, but sometimes we go like to there to get to there, right? And what I want to give you guys is, okay, let's take out this and let's get clear and let's just walk towards that. Yeah? Does that make sense? Okay, so let me know in the comments if anything is resonating with you, if there are any key takeaways, right? And so if you were to work with me, that's what we'd practice. We'd constantly tune into your truth, okay? Because I can't give it to you. I can guide you on how to continue to hear it. I can guide you in the physical, mental, and energetic realm, so that voice becomes louder than the voice that is like, no, let's not do that. That's not safe. Louder than the physical body, louder than the nervous system, louder. And we start to play. Our body, our nervous system, our mind, our energy plays in that place where we're like, ooh, yeah, this feels what we call sometimes like in alignment. This feels like I'm in flow. This feels fun. This feels exciting. It even feels a bit scary. Yeah? Okay? So, I think I I recapped everything, right? We gotta look at where that voice is coming from, discern, right? Know if we're in our zone of excellence, zone of genius. Know the difference between the way they speak, the way they think, and the way they talk. And move towards, always know that both are going to be there for the ride. So we need to take and shepherd that part of us with us. And then we walk to where we want to go. Yeah? So I hope this was helpful. If any of this resonates with you, you can, and you're thinking like, okay, yeah, I have that thing. I'm working in my zone of excellence, or I have this idea and I've been wanting it. I've been compelled to continue to move towards it, but I'm always doing this thing where I'm going to do this to get to that. Okay. Because my false CEO is always kind of like, no, we got to do this. We're not capable, so we got to do another certification. Oh, we don't have enough time, so like we're going to do that last. I'm not worth it, so it's not worth kind of investing the time or the money there, right? And you want to shift into letting your soul lead your life and actually take action from there so that it can manifest results that you want and that you dream of because you love it. Then DM me and let me know, Jamie, I'm ready for a breakthrough yoga coaching call. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you an application, right? And on that application, I'm going to read, I'm going to read between the lines. Where are your steps? Because remember, it's the difference between this and this, or right? And then we're going to get on a call and we're going to look at where that has specifically, the thing that is blocking you, specifically imprinted in your body, specifically imprinted in your mind, and specifically imprinted in your energy, because that's kind of like the key. And when you unlock that key, that kind of unlocks all the kind of lenses and the doors to help you kind of make decisions for everything else in your life. So that's step number one. And I'm going to help you find your step number 1, 2, 3 for your program, or what it is you want to do in your life, right? And we're also going to learn how to charge, a premium, which is 3, 4, 5, 8K for what you do. Because you're going to start to recognize your own expertise based on your personal experience. You're not going to make it up. Your life experience, that can't be made up either, right? And the people that are drawn to you, right? So just like my client who is like, I like the way you do business. And I'm like, oh, what, me? Oh, okay. And that's the funny thing. Life will always throw you a curveball. There will be some really kind of obvious things that are like, and you kind of just go for it. And there's going to be the thing in the soul's plan where you're like, really? Do I really? Oh, I don't know. I'm going to feel really rigid. I want to feel a certain way, so I don't know if I'm going to do that. Oh, and it just overwhelms you to the point that you fight, flight, or freeze. You can't take action, right? And so we're going to get to that root, yeah? And we're going to work, the first half of the program is really work with all of that unconsciousness in the body, through the emotions, in the mind, and in your energy. And then we're going to start to create, and then we're going to start to discover, and then we're going to start to manifest. Because I can give you all the strategy today, but if your unconscious CEO is running the show, it's going to take you to a certain point and come back, yeah? And so that's where the spacious collaboration between two people can happen. And that's what I want to show you, how you can be a spacious collaborator for the people who need your work. Right? Because why are we here? Right? To constantly show each other and mirror each other and raise that frequency, raise that vibration. Right? I think anyway, I believe that's one of the purposes, is just to evolve collectively into potential creative realities. So that is it for me. My name is Jamie Hernandez, founder of Breakthrough Yoga Coaching Method. And if you want, DM me, let me know you're ready for a Breakthrough Yoga Coaching call, and I'll be ready for you. I put the link in the description. My assistant Katie does that. And I'm going to be here next week, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If there's something that you have questions on, then write me in the comments or DM me. Bye, guys.